Vaisampayana said, coming back to Upaplavia from Hastinapura, that chastiser of foes, Kesava, represented unto the Pandavas all that had happened, and conferring with them for a long space of time, and holding repeated consultations, Sauri went to his own quarters for rest, and dismissing all the kings, with Virata and others at their heads, the 5 brothers, the Pandavas, when the sun had set, said their evening prayers, and with hearts ever fixed on Krishna, they began to think of him, and at last, bringing Krishna of Dasarha race into their midst, they began to deliberate again about what they should do. Yudhishthira said, "Thou of eyes like lotus petals, it behoveth thee to tell us all that thou sayest unto Dhritarashtra's son in the assembly, having gone to Nagapura." Vasudeva said, "Having gone to Nagapura, I addressed Dhritarashtra's son in the assembly such words as were true, reasonable, and beneficial. That wicked-minded fellow did not, however, accept them." Yudhishthira said, "When Duryodhana desired to tread along the wrong path, what did the aged Guru, grandsire, say unto that vindictive prince? What did the high blessed preceptor, the son of Biharadivaja, say? And what did his parents, Dhritarashtra and Gandhihari, say? What did our junior, Father Kishatri, who is the foremost of all persons conversant with virtue, and who is always afflicted with sorrow on account of ourselves, whom he regards as his sons, say unto Dhritarashtra's son? What did all the kings who sat in that assembly say? Say it all unto us exactly as it happened. Thou hast already told us all the disagreeable words that the Kuru chiefs and others in that assembly of the Kurus say unto the wicked Duryodhana, who is overwhelmed with lust and covetousness, and who regardeth himself wise. Those words, however, have flitted away from my memory. I desire to hear all those words again. Act thou in such a way that the opportunity may not pass away. Thou art our refuge, thou art our Lord, thou art our guide." Vasudeva said, "Hear the words that were addressed to King Suryodhana in the midst of the assembly of the Kurus, and bear them in thy mind." After my words were ended, Dhritarashtra's son laughed aloud, highly incensed at this. Bhishma then said, "Hear what I say for our haste, and having heard it, do what is beneficial to thy own house. My father, Santanu, was widely known in the world. I was at first his own son. A desire sprung up in his heart as to how he might obtain a second son, for the wise say that an only son is no son. Let not my race be extinct, may my fame be stried." Even this was his desire. Knowing this to have been his desire, I procured Kali to become my mother, having myself made a promise highly difficult to observe, for the sake of my father, as also for the sake of our race. How, in consequence of that promise, I could not be king and have drawn up my vital seed, are, of course, well known to thee. Observing that vow of mine, behold, I am living in happiness and joy. In her was born my younger brother, that might armed and handsome supporter of Kuru race, Vikhitravirya of virtuous soul. After my father's ascension to heaven, I installed Vikhitravirya as ruler of the kingdom that was mine, while I placed myself under him as a servant of his. I then brought him suitable wives, having vanquished men assembled monarchs, thou hast heard of it often. Sometimes after I was engaged in a single combat with the hammer. From fear of hammer, my brother fled. The more so as his subjects deserted him. During this period, he became very much attached to his wives, and accordingly had an attack of phthisis. Upon his death, there was anarchy in the kingdom, and the chief of the gods poured not a drop of rain. The subjects then, afflicted by fear of hunger, hastened to me and said, "Thy subjects are on the point of being exterminated. Be thou our king for the sake of our good. Dispel this drought. Blessed be thou. Thy subjects are being greatly afflicted by severe and frightful maladies. Very few of them are still alive. It behoveth thee to save them. Dispel these tortures. Cherish thy subjects righteously. When thou art alive, let not the kingdom go to destruction." Hearing these words of theirs uttered in a weeping voice, my heart was undisturbed. Remembering the behavior of good, I desired to maintain my vow. Then the citizens, my auspicious mother Kali herself, our servants, the priests and the preceptors, and men Brahmanas of great learning, are afflicted with great woe, solicited me to occupy the throne, and they said, "When thou art alive, shall the kingdom, ruled by Pratipa, go to him. Be thou the king for our good." Thus addressed by them, I joined my hands together, and myself filled with grief and greatly afflicted. I presented to them the vow I had made from filial respect. I repeatedly informed them that, for the sake of our race, I had vowed to live with vital seed drawn up and forswearing the throne. It was special for my mother, again, that I did so. I, therefore, begged them not to put me to the yoke. I again joined my hands and conciliated my mother, saying, "Begot by Santanu and being a member of Guru Haze, I cannot falsify my promise." I repeatedly told her this. And I said further, "It is for thee especially that I took this vow. I am verily thy servant and slave, thou that art distinguished for parental affection." Having begged my mother and the people thus, I then solicited the great sage Vyasa for begetting children upon the wives of my brother. Both myself and my mother gratified that wish at last. The wish granted our prayers in the matter of the children, and he begot 3 sons in all. Thy father was born blind, and in consequence of this congenital defect of a sense, he could not become king. The high-souled and celebrated Pandu became king. And when Pandu became king, his sons must obtain their paternal inheritance. Do not quarrel. Give them half the kingdom. When I am alive, what other man is competent to reign? Do not disregard my words. I only wish that there should be peace amongst you. I make no distinction between thee and them. What I have said unto thee represents the opinion of my father, of Gandhari, and of Vidyura. The words of those that are old should always be listened to. Do not disregard these words of mine. Do not destroy all thou hast in the earth. Vasudeva said, after Bhishma had said these words, Drona, always competent to speak, then addressed Duryodhana in the midst of the monarchs, and said these words that are beneficial to thee. And he said, as Pratipa's son, Santanu was devoted to the welfare of his race, and as the Mahabharata otherwise called Bhisma, was devoted to the welfare of his race. So was the royal Pandu, that king of the Kurus, who was firmly devoted to truth, who had his pastors under control, who was virtuous of excellent vows and attentive to all duties. That perpetuator of Kuru race yet made over the sovereignty of his elder brother. Dhritarashtra entered with great wisdom into his younger brother Kishatri, and placing these Dhritarashtra of unfailing glory on the throne, that royal son of Kuru race went to the woods with his 2 wives, and that tiger among men, Vidura, with great humility, placing himself in subjection to Dhritarashtra, began to wait on him like a slave, fanning him with the branch of a tender palm, and all the subjects then duly tendered their submission to King Dhritarashtra, just as they had done to King Pandu himself. And having made over the kingdom to Dhritarashtra and Vidura, that conqueror of hostile cities, Pandu wandered over the whole earth, always devoted to truth. Vidura then took charge of the finances, gifts, superintendence of the servants, and the feeding of all, while that conqueror of hostile cities, Bhisma, of might energy, supervised the making of war and peace, and the necessity of making or withholding gifts to kings. When King Dhritarashtra of great strength was on the throne, the high-souled Vidura was near him. Born in Dhritarashtra's race, how dost thou venture to bring about a disunion in thy family, uniting with thy brothers? Enjoy are objects of enjoyment. I do not say this to you from cowardice, nor for the sake of wealth. I am enjoying the wealth that Bhisma gave me, and not thou. I do not desire to have from thee my means of sustenance. Where Bhisma is, there Drona must be. Do what Bhisma hath told thee, grinder of foes, give unto the sons of Pandu half the kingdom. I acted as their preceptor as much as thine, even as Asvatihaman is to me, so is Arjuna of white steeds. What use is there of much declamation? Victory is there where righteousness is. After Drona of immeasurable energy had said this, the virtuous Vidura, then, who is devoted to truth, said these words, turning towards his uncle and looking at his face. And Vidura said, attend to the words I speak. This race of Kuru, when it became extinct, was revived by thee. It is for this that thou art indifferent to my lamentations now. In this our race, its stain is this Duryodhana, whose inclinations are followed by thee. Our talk, he is enslaved by avarice, and is wicked and ungrateful and deprived of his senses by lust. The Kurus will certainly bear consequence of the acts of that Duryodhana, who transgresseth the command of his father, observant of virtue and property. Act thou so that the Kurus may not perish, like a panther producing victory. It was thou who hast caused me and Dhritarashtra to spring into life. The Creator, having created creatures, destroys them again. Do not act like him, seeing before thy very eyes this extinction of thy race. Be not indifferent to it. If, however, thy understanding is gone in consequence of the universal slaughter that is at hand, go then to the woods, taking me and Dhritarashtra with thee. Otherwise, binding this very day wicked Duryodhana, that hath deceitful his wisdom, rule this kingdom with the sons of Pandu, guarding it around. He learned a great slaughter of the Pandavas, the Kurus, and of other kings of immeasurable energy is before us. Having said this, Vidiura ceased, his heart overflowing with sorrow, and reflecting on the matter, he began to drown repeated sighs. Then the doctor of King Suvala, alarmed at the prospect of the destruction of one whole race, said, from wrath, this was fraught with virtue and profit, to cruel Duryodhana of wicked heart, in the presence of the assembled monarchs. Let all the kings present in this royal assembly, and let the regenerate riches that form the other members of this conclave listen, as I proclaim the guilt of thy sinful self, backed by all thy counselors. The kingdom of the Kurus is enjoyably in the order of succession. Even these have always been the custom of our race, of sinful soul and exceedingly wicked in acts. Thou seekest the destruction of the Kuru kingdom by thy unrighteousness. Wise Dhritarashtra is in possession of the kingdom, having Vidura of great foresight under him, passing over these two. Why dost thou, from delusion, covet the supergnate now? Even the high-souled king and Kishatri, when Bhishma is alive, should both be subordinate to him. This foremost of men, this offspring of Ganga, the high-souled Bhishma, in consequence of his righteousness, doth not desire the supergnate. It is for this reason that this invincible kingdom became Pandu's. His sons, therefore, are masters today and no other. This extensive kingdom, then by paternal right, belongeth to the Pandavas and their sons and grandsons in due order, observing the customs of our race and rule with respect to our kingdom. We are full accomplished that wish this high-souled and wise chief of the Kurus, the Mahabharata, firmly adhering to truth, saith, let this king and Virura, at the command of Bhishma of great vows, proclaim the same thing. Even that is an act that should be done by those that are well-wishers, keeping virtue in front. Let Yudhishthira, the son of the Dharma, guided by the king Dhritarashtra and urged by Santanu's son, rule for many long years this kingdom of the Kurus, lawful obtainably by him. Vasudeva said, after Gandhihari had said this, that ruler of men, Dhritarashtra, then said these words to Duryodhana in the midst of the monarchs. Listen to what I say, and blessed be thou, do that if thou hast any respect for thy father. The lord of creatures, Soma, was the original progenitor of the Kuru race. Sixth in descent from Soma was Yayati, the son of Nahusha. Yayati had 5 best of royal sages as his sons. Amongst them, Lord Yadu of might energy was the eldest born. Younger to Yadu was Puru, who, as our progenitor, brought forth by Sarmistiha, the daughter of Vrishaparvan. Yadu was born of Devayani, and therefore was the daughter son of Sukra, otherwise called Kavya, of immeasurable energy, and with great strength and prowess. That progenitor of the Yadavas, filled with pride and possessed of wicked understanding, humiliated all the Kshatriyas. Intoxicated with pride of strength, he obeyed not the injunctions of his father. Invincibly impatently, he insulted his father and brother. On this earth girt on 4 sides by the seer, Yadu became all-powerful and reducing all to subjection. He established himself in the seat called after the elephant. His father Yayati, the son of Nahusha, enraged with him, cursed that son of his, and even expelled him from the kingdom. Angry Yayati cursed those brothers of Yadu, who were obedient to that else brother of theirs, who was so proud of his strength, and having cursed these sons, that best of kings placed on his throne his youngest son Puru, who was docile and obedient to him. Thus even the eldest son may be passed over and deprived of the kingdom, and younger sons may, in consequence of their respectful behavior to the aged, obtain the kingdom. So also, conversant with every virtue, there was my grandfather, King Pratipa, who was celebrated over the three worlds, unto that lion among kings, who ruled his kingdom virtuously, were born three sons of great fame, and resembling three gods. Of them, Devapi was the eldest, Valhika the next, and Santanu of great intelligence, who was my grandfather, was the youngest. Devapi, endowed with great energy, was virtuous, truthful in speech, and ever engaged in waiting upon his father. But that best of kings had a skin disease, popular with both the citizens and the subjects of the provinces, respected by the good, and dearly loved by the young and the old. Devapi was liberal, firmly adhering to truth, engaged in the good of all creatures, and obedient to the instructions of his father, as also of the Brahmanas. He was dearly loved by his brother Valhika, as also the high-souled Santanu. Great was the brotherly love that prevailed between him and his high-souled brothers. In course of time, the old and best of kings, Pratipa, caused all preparations to be made according to the scriptures for the installation of the Vapi. The Lord Pratipa caused every auspicious preparation. The installation of the Vapi, however, was forbidden by the Brahmanas and all aged persons amongst the citizens and the inhabitants of the provinces. Hearing that the installation of his son was forbidden, the voice of the old king became shocked with tears, and he began to grieve for his son. Thus, Tog the Vapi was liberal, virtuous, devoted to truth, and loved by the subjects, yet in consequence of his skin disease, he was excluded from his inheritance. The gods do not approve of a king that is defective of a limb. Thinking of this, those bulls among Brahmanas forbade King Pratipa to install his eldest son. The Vapi, then, who was defective of one limb, beholding the king, prevented and filled with sorrow on his account, retired into the woods. As regards Valhika, abandoning his kingdom, he dwelt with his maternal uncle. Abandoning his father and brother, he obtained the highly wealth kingdom of his maternal grandfather. With Valhika permission, Santanu of worldwide fame, on the death of his father, became king and ruled the kingdom. In this way also, Tog, I am the eldest. Yet being defective of a limb, I was excluded from the kingdom by intelligent Pandu, no doubt, after much reflection. And Pandu himself, Tog, younger to me in age, obtained the kingdom, and became king. At his death, that kingdom must pass to his sons. When I could not obtain the kingdom, how canst thou cover it? Thou art not the son of a king, and therefore hast no right to this kingdom. Thou, however, desirest to appropriate the property of others. High-souled Yudhishthira is the son of a king. This kingdom is lawful his. Of magnanimous soul, even he is the ruler and lord of this race of Kuru. He is devoted to truth, of clear perception, obedient to the counsels of friends, honest, loved by the subjects, kind to all well-wishers, master of his passions, and the chastiser of all that are not good. Forgiveness, renunciation, self-control, knowledge of the scriptures, mercy to all creatures, competence to rule according to the dictates of virtue. All these attributes of royalty exist in Yudhishthira. Thou art not the son of a king, and art always sinful, inclined towards thy relatives. How canst thou succeed in appropriating this kingdom that lawful belongeth to others? Dispelling this delusion, give half the kingdom with animals and other possessions. Then mayest thou hope to live for some time with thy younger brothers. Vasudeva said, Tog thus addressed by Bhishma and Drona and Vidyura and Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, that wicked could not yet be brought to his senses. On the other hand, the wicked Duryodhana, disregarding them all, rose with eyes red in anger, and all the kings, prepared to lay down their lives, followed him behind. King Duryodhana then repeatedly ordered those wicked-hearted rulers, saying, Today, constellation Pushiya is ascendant. March ye to Kurukshetra. Impelled by fate, those monarchs then, with their soldiers, gladly set out, making Bhishma their generalissimo. 11 Akshauhinis of troops have been assembled for the Kauravas. At the head of that host shineth Bhishma, with the device of the Palmyra on the banner of his car. In view, therefore, of what hath happened, do now that which seemeth to be proper. I have told thee everything that was said by Bhishma, Drona, Vidyura, Gandhari, and Dhritarashtra in my presence. The arts beginning with conciliation were all employed by me from desire of establishing brotherly feelings, for the preservation of this haste, and for the growth and prosperity of the population. When conciliation failed, I employed the art of dissensions, and mentioned, Ye Pandavas, all your ordinary and extraordinary fiats. When Suryodhana showed no respect for the conciliatory words, I caused all the kings to be assembled together and endeavored to produce dissensions. Extraordinary and awful and terribly and superhuman indications were then manifested by me, rebuking all the kings, making a straw of Suryodhana, terrifying Harihasan, and repeatedly censuring Suvalasan for the gambling match of Dhritarashtra's sons, and once again endeavoring to disunite all the kings by means of both words and intrigues. Again had recourse to conciliation. For the night of Kuruhays, and in view of the special requirements of the Pilsunis, I spoke of gift. I said, those heroes, the sons of Pandu, sacrificing their pride, will live in dependence on Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, and Vidyura. Let the kingdom be given to thee. Let them have no power. Let it all be as the king, as Ganga's son, and as Vidyura say, for thy good. Let the kingdom be thine. Relinquish but 5 villages. Without doubt, they deserve to be supported by thy father. Tog addressed thus, that wicked soul do not still give you your share. Therefore, see that chastisement and nothing else is now the means that should be employed against those sinful persons. Those kings have already marched to Kurukshetra. I have now told thee everything that had happened in the assembly of the Kurus. They will not give thee thy kingdom without battle. With death waiting before them, they have all become the cause of a universal destruction. Hearing these words of Janardana, King Yudhishthira, the just, of virtuous soul, addressed his brothers in the presence of Kesava, and said, Ye have heard all that had happened in the court of the assembled Kurus. Ye have understood the words uttered by Kesava. Ye best of men, draw up, therefore, my troops now in battle array in which they are to fight. Here are 7 Akishauhinis of troops assembled for our victory. Here the names of those 7 celebrated warriors that would lead those 7 Akishauhinis. They are Drupada, and Virata, and Diristariumna, and Sikihandi, and Satyaki, Hekitana, and Bhishmasena of great energy. Those heroes will be the leaders of my troops. All of them are conversant with the Vedas, and with great bravery. All of them have practiced excellent vows, possessed of modesty. All of them are conversant with policy, and accomplished in war, well skilled in arrows and weapons. All of them are competent in the use of every kind of weapon. Tell us now who that warrior is, conversant with all kinds of battle array, that may become the leader of these 7, and may withstand in battle Bhishma, who is like unto a fire having arrows for its flames. Give us thy own opinion, as who is fit to be our generalissimo. Sahadeva said, closely related to us, sympathizing with us in our distress, and with great might, conversant with every virtue, skilled in weapons, and irresistible in battle, the mighty king of the Matsuyas, Virata, relying upon whom we hope to recover our share of the kingdom, will be able to bear in battle both Bhishma and all those mighty warriors. After Sahadeva had said this, eloquent Nakula then said these words, He that in ears, in knowledge of scriptures, in perseverance, in family and birth, is respectable. He that is endowed with modesty, strength, and prosperity, he that is well versed in all branches of learning, he that studied the science of weapons, he who is irresistibly and firmly devoted to truth, he that always challenges Drona and mocked Bhishma, he that belongs to one of the foremost of royal houses, he that is a famous leader of hosts, he that assembles a tree of 100 branches in consequence of sons and grandsons that surround him, that king who, with his wife, performed, moved by wrath, the asterisk of penances for the destruction of Drona, that hero who is an ornament of assemblies, that bull among monarchs who always cherishes us like a father, that father-in-law of ours, Drupada, should be our generalissimo. It is my opinion that he will be able to withstand both Drona and Bhishma, rushing to battle, for that king is the friend of Angra descendant Drona, and is conversant with celestial weapons. After the 2 sons of Madri had thus expressed their individual opinions, Vasava's son, Savyasakhin, who was equal to Vasava himself, said these words, The celestial person of the Hui of fire and endowed with mighty arms, who sprung into life through the power of ascetic penances and the gratification of sages, who issued from the sacrificial fire hall, armed with bow and sword, accoutred in armor of steel, mounted on a car unto which were yoked excellent steeds of the best breed, and the clatter of whose car wheels was as deep as the roar of mighty masses of clowns. This hero endowed with that energy and strength, and resembling the very lion in his frame of body and prowess, and possessed of leonine shoulders, arms, chest, and voice like the lion Hor, this hero of great effulgence, this warrior of handsome brows, fine teeth, round cheeks, long arms of stout make, excellent thighs, large expansive eyes, excellent legs, and strong frame, this prince who is incapable of being penetrated by weapons of any kind, and who looks like an elephant with hand temples, this diristariumna, truthful in speech and with passions under control, was born for the destruction of Verona. It is this diristariumna, I think, that will be able to bear vitima arrows, with strike with the vehemence of the thunderbolt, and look like snakes with blazing mouths, which resemble the messengers of Yama in speed, and fall like flames of fire, and which were born before Bahama alone in battle. I do not see the man except the Ristariumna, who is able to withstand vitima of great vows. This is just what I think, and with great lightness of hand, and conversant with all the modes of warfare, accoutred in coat of mail, that is incapable of being penetrated by weapons. This handsome hero, resembling the leader of a herd of elephants, is, according to my opinion, fit to be our generalissimo. Bhishma then said, that son of Drupada, Sikhandi, who is born for the destruction of Bhishma, as is said by the sages and siddhas assembled together, whose form on the field of battle, while displaying celestial weapons, will be seen by men to resemble that of the illustrious Rama himself. I see not the person who is able to pierce with weapons that Sikhandi, when he is stationed for battle on his car, accoutred in mail, except the heroic Sikhandi. There is no other warrior who is able to slay Bhishma in single combat. It is for this that I think Sikhandi is fit to be our generalissimo. Yudhishthira said, the strength and weakness, might and feebleness of everything in the universe, and the intentions of every person here are well known to virtuoso Kesava, skilled or unskilled in weapons, old or young. Let him be the leader of my forces, who may be indicated by Krishna of Dasarha race. Even he is the root of our success or defeat. In him are our lives, our kingdom, our prosperity and adversity, our happiness and misery. Even he is the ordainer and creator. In him is established the fruition of our desires. Let him, therefore, be the leader of our host, who may be named by Krishna. Let that foremost of the speakers say, for the night approaches, having selected our leader, worshipped our weapons with offerings of flowers and perfumes, we will, at daybreak, under Krishna orders, march to the field of battle. Hearing these words of the intelligent king, Yudhishthira, the just, the lotus-eyed Krishna said, eyeing the Dhananjaya, the white, are full approve of all those powerful warriors whom ye have named for becoming the leaders of thy troops. All of them are competent to withstand thy foes. They can frighten Indra himself in great battle, let alone the covetous and wicked-minded sons of Dhritarashtra. For thy good are made great efforts to prevent the battle by bringing about peace. But that we have been freed from the debt we owed to virtue. Fault-finding persons will not be able to reproach us for anything. Foolish Duryodhana, destitute of understanding, regardeth himself as skilled in weapons, and though real weak, thinketh himself to be possessed of strength. Arise thy troops soon, for slaughter is the only means by which they can be made to yield to our demands. The sons of Dhritarashtra will never be able to keep their ground when they will behold the Dhananjaya with Yudhishthira as his second. and Abhimanyu, and the 5 sons of Draupadi, and Virata, and Drupada, and the other kings of fierce prowess, our lords of Akishauhinis. Our army is possessed of great strength, and is invincibly and incapable of being withstood. Without doubt, it will slay the Dhritarashtra host, as regards our leader, a wound named that chastiser of foes, the Dhritarashtra. When Krishna had said this, all the monarchs there were filled with joy, and the shout sent forth by those delighted kings was tremendous, and the troops began to move about with great speed, saying, "Draw up!" And the neighing of steeds, and horns of elephants, and the clatter of cowbells, and the blare of conches, and the sound of drums, heard everywhere, produced a tremendous din. And teeming with cars, and foot soldiers, and steeds, and elephants, that invincible host of the marching Pandavas, moving hither and thither, donning their coats of mail, and uttering their war cries, looked like the impetuous current of the Ganga, when at its full, agitated with fierce eddies and waves. And in the van of that host marched Bhishmasena, and the 2 sons of Madri, encased in their coats of mail, and Subhadra son, and the 5 sons of Draupadi, and the Dhritarashtra of Prishata haste, and the Prabhihadarakas, and the Pankhalas marched behind Bhishmasena, and the din made by the marching hosts, filled with joy, was like unto the roar of the deep when the tide is highest on the day of the new moon. The tumult was such that it seemed to reach the very heavens, and capable of breaking hostile ranks, those warriors, cased in armor, marched thus, filled with joy. And Kunti's son, King Yudhishthira, amongst them marched, taking with him the cars and other vehicles for transport, the food stores and fodder, the tents, carriages, and drugged cattle, the cash chests, the machines and weapons, the surgeons and physicians, the invalids, and all the emaciated and weak soldiers, and all the attendants and camp followers. And truthful Draupadi, the prince of Panchala, accompanied by the ladies of the household, and surrounded by servants and maids, remained at Upaplavia, and causing their treasury and ladies to be guarded by bodies of soldiers, some of whom were placed as permanent lines of circumvallation, and some ordered to move about at a distance from this line. The Pandavas set out with their mighty host, and having made presents of kine and gold to the Brahmanas, who walked around them and uttered blessings, the sons of Pandu commenced the march on their cars decked with jewels. And the prince of Kekaya, and Ristaketu, and the son of the king of the Kassis, and Serenimat, and Vasudana, and the invincible Sikhandi, are hail and hurt, cased in armor, and armed with weapons, and decked with ornaments, marched behind Yudhishthira, keeping him in their center. And in the rear were Virata, Yashinasena son, of the Somoka race, Susarman, Kuntibihoja, the Dhritarashtra sons, 4,000 cars, 5 times as much cavalry, infantry, 10 times more numerous, and 60,000 elephants, and Anadihishti, and Hekitana, and Ristaketu, and Satyaki are marched surrounding Vasudeva and Dhananjaya. And reaching the field of Kurukshetra with their forces in battle array, those smithers, the sons of Pandu, looked like roaring bulls, and entering the field, those chastiser of foes blew their conches, and Vasudeva and Dhananjaya blew their conches, and hearing the blare of the conch called Pankhajanya, which resembled the roar of the thunder, all the warriors were filled with joy, and the leonine horse of those warriors ended with lightness of hand and speed of motion, mingling with the blare of conches and beat of drums, made the whole earth the welkin and the oceans resound therewith. King Yudhishthira then caused his troops to encamp on a part of the field that was level, cool, and abounding with grass and fuel, avoiding cemeteries, temples, and compounds consecrated to the deities, asylums of sages, shrines, and other sacred plots. Kunti high-souled son, Yudhishthira, pitched his camp on a delightful, fertile, open and sacred part of the plain, and rising up again after his animals had been given sufficient rest, the king set out joyously, surrounded by hundreds and thousands of monarchs, and Kesava, accompanied by Partiha, began to move about, scattering numerous soldiers of Dhritarashtra and Dhristadyumna of Prishatha haste, and that mighty warrior of great energy, Yuyudhana, otherwise called Satyaki, measured the ground for the encampment, and arrived at the hall Hiranvat, which flows through Kurukshetra, which was filled with sacred water, and whose bed was divested of pointed pebbles and miri, and which was regarded as an excellent tirtha. Kesava caused a moat to be excavated there, and for its protection stationed a sufficient number of troops with proper instructions, and the rules that were observed in respect of the tents of the high-souled Pandavas were followed by Kesava in the matter of the tents he caused to be set up for the kings, and costly tents incapable of being attacked, apart from one another, were by hundreds and thousands set up for those kings on the surface of the earth, that looked like palatial residences, and abounded with fuels and edibles and drinks, and there were assembled hundreds upon hundreds of skilled mechanics, in shaped of regular ways, and surgeons and physicians, well versed in their own science, and furnished with every ingredient they might need, and King Yudhishthira caused to be placed in every pavilion large quantities, high as hills, of bowstrings and bows, and cords of mail and weapons, honey and clarified butter, pounded lac, water, fodder of cattle, shaft and coils, heavy machines, long shafts, lances, battle axes, bow staffs, breastplates, scimitars, and quivers, and innumerable elephants cased in plates of steel, with prickles thereon, hug as a hills, and capable of fighting with hundreds and thousands, were seen there, and learning that the Pandavas had encamped on that field, their allies with their forces and animals began to march thither, and many kings who had practiced Brahmacharya vows, drunk Soma, and had made large presents to Brahmanas at sacrifices, came there for the success of the sons of Pandu. Janamejaya said, hearing that Yudhishthira had, with his troops, marched from the desert of battle, and encamped on Kurukshetra, protected by Vasudeva, and aided by Virata and Drupada with their sons, and surrounded by the Kekayas, the Vrishnis, and other kings by hundreds, and watched over by numerous mighty warriors, like the great Indra himself by the Adityas. What mysteries were concerted by King Duryodhana. I desire to hear in detail all that happened in Kurujangala on that frightful occasion. The son of Pandu, with Vasudeva and Virata and Drupada and the Ristariumna, the Panchala prince, and that Maika warrior, Sikhi handling, and powerful Yudhihamanyu, incapable of being resisted by the very gods, might trouble the deities themselves impatiently with Indra at their head. Therefore, desire to hear in detail all the acts of the Kurus and the Pandavas as they had happened. Vaisampayana said, when he of Dasarha race had departed, King Duryodhana, addressing Karna and Dusasana and Sakuni, said these words: Kesaya hath gone to the sons of Pritha without having been able to achieve his object. Filled with wrath as he is, he will surely stimulate the Pandavas. A battle between myself and Pandavas is much desired by Vasudeva. Bhishma, Sena and Arjuna are ever of the same mind with him. Yudhishthira, again, is very much under the influence of Bhishma Sena. Before this, Yudhishthira, with all his brothers, was persecuted by me. Virata and Drupada, whom I had waged hostilities with, obedient to Vasudeva, both of them have become the leaders of Yudhishthira host. The battle, therefore, that will take place will be a fierce and terrific one, casting off our slot. Cause every preparation to be made for the encounter. Let the kings pitch their tents by hundreds and thousands on Kurukshetra, of which must be spacious, incapable of being approached by enemies, near enough to places abounding with water and fuel, in such positions that the communications thereto for sending supplies may not be stopped at any time by the foe, full of weapons of diverse kinds and decked with streamers and flags. Let the horde from our seat to the camp be made level for their march. Let it be proclaimed this very day, without loss of time, that our march will commence tomorrow. They said, so be it. And when the morrow came, those high-souled persons did everything they had been commanded to do for the accommodation of the monarchs, and all those monarchs, hearing the king's command, rose up from their costly seats, with wrath having the foe for its objects, and they began to slowly rub their mace-like arms, blazing with bracelets of gold, and decked with the past of sandal and other fragrant substances. And they commenced with those lotus-like hands of theirs to wear their headgears and lower and upper garments and diverse kinds of ornaments, and men foremost of cow warriors began to superintend the furnishing of their cars, and persons conversant with horse lore began to harness their steeds, while those versed in matters relating to elephants began to equip those hook animals, and all those warriors began to wear diverse kinds of beautiful armor made of gold, and arm themselves with diverse weapons. And the foot soldiers began to take up various kinds of arms, and encase their bodies in various kinds of armor, decorated with gold. And the seat of Duryodhana, then filled as it was with rejoicing millions, wore the bright aspect of a festive occasion, and the Kuru capital at the prospect of battle looked like the ocean on the appearance of the moon, with the vast crowds of humanity representing its waters, with their eddies, the cars, elephants, and horses representing its fishes, the tumult of conches and drums, its roar, the treasury chests, its jewels and gems, the diverse kinds of ornaments and armor, its waves, the bright weapons, its white foam, the halls of houses, the mountains on its beach, and the hordes and shops like lakes. Recollecting the words spoken by Vasudeva, Yudhishthira once more addressed that scion of Vrishni haste, saying, "How could wicked Duryodhana say it? What should we do in view of the occasion that hath come? By acting in what way may we keep on the track of our duty? Thou art acquainted with the views of Duryodhana, Karna, and Sakuni, the son of Suvala. Thou knowest what views are entertained by myself and my brothers. Thou hast heard the words uttered by both Vidura and Bhishma. Thou hast heard in their entirety the words of wisdom spoken by Kunti. Overlooking all these, tell us, thou of might arms, after reflection and without hesitation, what is for our good." Hearing these words of King Yudhishthira, the just, that were fraught with virtue and prophecy, Krishna replied in a voice deep as that of the clowns or cymbals, saying, responding to his advantage and consistent with both virtue and prophecy, those words that were uttered by me in the Kuru court found no response in the Kuru prince Duryodhana, with whom the sage supplieth the place of wisdom. That wretch of wicked understanding listeneth not in the least to the counsels of Bhishma or Vidura or mine. He transgresseth everybody. He wisheth not to hear virtue, nor doth he wish for fame. That wicked-souled wight, lying upon Karna, regardeth everything as already won. Suryodhana, of wicked heart and sinful in his resolves, even ordered my incarceration, but he did not, however, obtain the fruition of that wish. Neither Bhishma nor Drona said anything on that subject. All of them follow Duryodhana, except Vidura. Sakuni, the son of Suvala, and Karna, and Dusasana, are equally foolish, gave foolish and vindictive Duryodhana much improper advice regarding thee. What use is there in my repeating to thee all that the Kuru prince have said? In brief, that wicked-souled wight beareth no good will towards thee. Not even in all these kings together, that form thy arm, is that misery of sinfulness and wickedness which resideth in Duryodhana alone. As regards ourselves, we do not desire to make peace with the Kauravas by abandoning our property. War, therefore, is that which should now take place. Hearing these words uttered by Vasudeva, all the kings, without saying anything, looked at Yudhishthira's face, and Yudhishthira, understanding the intention of those monarchs, said with Bhishma and Arjuna and the twins, "Draw up the troops in battle array." And the word of command having been passed, a great uproar rose amongst the Pandava army, and all the soldiers were filled with joy. King Yudhishthira, the just, however, beholding the slaughter of those that deserved not to be slain, began to sigh deeply, and addressing Bhishmasena and Vijaya, said, "That for the sake of which I accepted an exile into the woods, and for which I suffered so much misery, that great calamity overtaketh us of a set purpose. That for which we strove so much leaveth us as if on account of our very striving. On the other hand, a great distress overtaketh us, although we did nothing to invite it. How shall we fight with those reverend superiors, whom we on no account can slay? What kind of victory shall we achieve by slaying our preceptors of venerable age?" Hearing these words of King Yudhishthira, the just, Savyasakhin repeated to his elder brother all those words that Vasudeva had said, en addressing Yudhishthira, Arjuna continued, "Thou hast certainly understood all the words spoken by Kunti and Vidura that were repeated to thee by Devaki's son. I know it for certain that neither Vidura nor Kunti won't say anything that is sinful. Besides this, we cannot withdraw without engaging in battle." Hearing this speech of Savyasakhi, Vasudeva said unto Partha, "It is even so." The sons of Pandu then made up their minds for war, and passed that night with their soldiers in great happiness. After that night had passed away, King Duryodhana distributed his 11 Akhisauhinis of troops, and arranging his men, elephants, cars, and steeds into 3 classes, superior, middling, and inferior, the king distributed them amongst his divisions, and furnished with timber and planks for repairing the damage their cars might sustain in the press of battle, with large quivers borne on cars, with tiger skins and other stiff leather for enveloping the sides of cars, with barbed javelins to be hurled by the hand, with quivers borne on the backs of steeds and elephants, with long-handled spears of iron and missiles, with quivers borne on the backs of foot soldiers, with heavy clubs of wood, with flagstaffs and banners, with long heavy shafts shot from bows, with diverse kinds of nooses and lassoes, with armor of various kinds, with short-pointed clubs of wood, with oil, treacle, and sand, with earthen pots filled with poisonous snakes, with pulverized lac and other inflammable matter, with short spears furnished with tinkling bells, with diverse weapons of iron, and machines for hurling hot treacle, water, and stones, with whistling clubs of hard wood, with wax and heavy mallets, with clubs of wood having iron spikes, with plague pods and poisoned darts, with long syringes for pouring warm treacle and planks of cane, with battle axes and forked lances, with spiked gauntlets, with axes and pointed arrow spikes, with cars having their sides covered with skins of tigers and leopards, with sharp-edged circular planks of wood, with horns, with javelins and various other weapons of attack, with axes of the Kutihara species, and spades with cloths steeped in oil, and with clarified butter, the divisions of Duryodhana, glittering with robes embroidered with gold and decked with various kinds of jewels and gems, and consisting of warriors endowed with handsome persons, blazed forth like fire, encased in coats of mail, and well skilled in weapons, accomplished in horse lore. Brave persons of good birth were employed as car drivers, and all the cars were furnished with various drugs, and with horses having rows of bells and pearls on their heads, and with banners and flagstaffs, and with ornaments gracing their stepless and turrets, and with shields, swords, and lances, and javelins, and spiked maces, and unto each of those cars were yoked 4 steeds of the best breed, and upon each of them were kept 100 bows, and each car had one driver in charge of the couple of steeds in front, and 2 drivers in charge of the couple of steeds attached to the wheels on the 2 sides, and both of the last mentioned drivers were skilled car warriors, while the car warrior himself was skilled in driving steeds. And thousands of cars thus furnished and decked with gold, and protected like fortified town, and incapable of being conquered by foes, were stationed on all sides, and the elephants were furnished with hoes of bells and pearls, and decked with diverse ornaments. And on the back of each of those animals mounted 7 warriors, and in consequence of such accoutrements, those animals looked like hills graced with jewels. And amongst the 7, 2 were armed with hooks, 2 were excellent bowmen, 2 were first-rate swordsmen, and one was armed with a lance and trident. And the arm of the illustrious Kuru king, teemed with innumerably infuriate elephants bearing on their backs loads of weapons and quivers filled with arrows, and there were thousands of steeds ridden by brave soldiers accoutred in mail, decked in ornaments, and furnished with flags, and numbering in hundreds and thousands. All those steeds were free from the habit of scratching the ground with their forehoofs, and they were all well trained and decked with ornaments of gold, and exceedingly obedient to their riders. And of foot soldiers there were hundreds of thousands of diverse men, accoutred in armors of diverse kinds, and armed with weapons of diverse species, and decked with golden ornaments, and unto each car were assigned 10 elephants, and unto each elephant 10 horses, and unto each horse 10 foot soldiers, as protectors. Again, a large body of troops was kept as a reserve for rallying the ranks that would be broken, and this reserve consisted of cars, unto each of which were attached 50 elephants, and unto each elephant were attached 100 horses, and unto each horse were attached 7 foot soldiers. 500 cars, as many elephants, constitute a sena, 10 senas constitute a pritana, and 10 pritanas a vahini. In common parlance, those sena, vahini, pritana, tivashini, hamu, akishahini, and varutihini are used in the same sense. It was thus that the intelligent Kaurava arrayed his force between the two sides. The total number was 18 akishahinis. Of these, the Pandava force consisted of 7 akishahinis, while the Kaurava force consisted of 10 akishahinis, and on more. 5 times 50 men constitute a pati. 3 patis make a sena mukiha, or guma. 3 gumas make a gana. In Duryodhana arm, there were thousands and hundreds of such ganas, consisting of warriors capable of smithing and lunging for battle, and the might-armed King Duryodhana, selecting from among them brave and intelligent warriors, made them the leaders of his troops, and placing an akishahini of troops under each of those best of men, Kripa, Drona, Saliya, Jayadratha, the king of the Sindhus, Sudakishina, the ruler of the Kambojas, Kritavarman, Dronason, Karna, Bihu his Ravas, Sakuni, the son of Suvala, and Mike Valhika. The king used to bring them daily before him and at all hours, and speak to them, and he repeatedly offered them worship before his very eyes, and thus appointed our warriors with all their followers became desirous of doing what was most agreeably to the king. Vaisampayana said, Dhritarashtra son, accompanied by all the kings, then addressed Bhisma, son of Santanu, and with joined hands said these words, Without a commander, even a might arm is halted impotently like a swarm of ants. The intelligence of 2 persons can never agree. Different commanders, again, are jealous of one another as regards their prowess. It is heard that the Brahmanas, raising a standard of Kusagras, encountered impotently the Kshatriyas of the Haihaya clan, and met with immeasurably energy. the Vaisyas and the Sudras followed the Brahmanas, so that all the three orders were on one side, while those bulls among the Kshatriyas were alone on the other. In the battles, however, that ensued, the three orders repeatedly broke, while the Kshatriyas fought alone, vanquished large arm that was opposed to them. Then those best of Brahmanas inquired of the Kshatriyas themselves. Those that were virtuous among the Kshatriyas returned the true answer to the inquirers, saying, "Impatiently we obey the orders of one person and do it with great intelligence, while ye are disunited from one another and acting according to your individual understanding." The Brahmanas then appointed one amongst themselves as their commander, who was brave and conversant with the ways of policy, and they then succeeded in vanquishing the Kshatriyas. Thus people always conquer their foes impatiently, who appoint a skilled, brave, and sinless commander, observing the good of the forces under him. As regards thee, thou art equal to Usanus himself, and always seekest my good. Incapable of being slain, thou art again devoted to virtue. Be thou, therefore, our commander, like the sun among our luminaries, like the one unto all delicious herbs, like Kuvera among the Yakishas, like Vasava among the gods, like Meru among mountains, Suparna among the birds, Kumara among the gods, Havya Vaha among Vasus. Thou art amongst ourselves, like the gods protected by Sakra, ourselves protected by thee, will assuredly become invincibly by the very gods, like Agni's son at the head of the gods, march thou at our head, and let us follow thee like calves following the lead of a mighty bull. Bhishma said, "Might Ahmed on, it is even so, as thou sayest, but the Pandavas are as dear to me as ye yourselves. Therefore I shall certainly seek their good as well. Although I shall certainly fight for thee, having given thee a pledge to that effect. I do not see the warrior on earth that is equal to me, except that tiger among men, the Dhananjaya, the son of Kunti, and with great intelligence he is conversant with innumerable celestial weapons. That son of Pandu, however, will never fight with me openly. With the power of my weapons I can, in a trice, destroy this universe consisting of gods, asuras, rakshasas, and human beings. The sons of Pandu, however, are incapable of being exterminated by me. I shall slay every day 10,000 warriors. If they do not slay me in battle first, I will continue to slaughter their forces thus. There is another understanding on which I may willingly become the commander of thy forces. It behoveth thee to listen to that. Either Karna should fight first, or I will fight first. The Sutason always boasts of his prowess impatiently, comparing it with mine. Karna said, "As long as Ganga's son liveth, I shall never fight. After Bhishma is slain, I shall fight with the elder of Gandiva." After this, Dhritarashtra's son duly made Bhishma the commander of his forces, distributing large presents, and after his installation in the command, he blazed forth with beauty, and at the king's behest, musicians cheerful played upon drums, and blew conches by hundreds and thousands, and numerous learning horns were sent forth, and all the animals in the camp uttered their cries together. And although the sky was cloudless, a bloody shower fell and made the ground mead, and fierce winds and earthquakes and hordes of elephants occurring depressed the hearts of all the waters. Incorporeal voices and flashes of meteoric falls were heard and seen in the welkin, and jackals, howling fiercely forebode great calamity. And these and 100 other kinds of fierce portents made their appearance when the king installed Gangason in the command of his troops, and after making Bhisma, that grinder of hostile hosts, his general, and having caused by abundant gifts of kine and gold to the Brahmanas to pronounce benedictions on him, and glorified by those benedictions, and surrounded by his troops, and with Ganga son in the van, and accompanied by his brothers, Duryodhana marched to Kurukshetra with his large host, and the Kuru king, going over the plain with Karna in his company, caused his camp to be measured out on a level part of that plain, and the camp pitched on a delightful and fertile spot abounding with grass and fuel, shone like Hastinapura itself. Janamejaya said, when Yudhishthira heard that Bhisma, the high-souled son of Ganga, the foremost of all elders of weapons, the grandsire of the Biharatas, the head of all the kings, the rival of Vrihaspati in intellect, resembling the ocean in gravity, the mountains of Himavat in calmness, the creator himself in nobleness, and the sun in energy, and capable of slaying hostile hosts like great Indra himself by showering his arrows, was installed, till his removal by death, in the command of the Kuru arm on the eve of the great sacrifice of Baitali, terrific in its mien, and capable of making on hairs stand on their ends. What did that might-armed son of Pandu, that foremost of elders of weapons, say? What did Bhishma and Arjuna say? And what did Krishna say? Vaisampayana said, when news was received of this, Yudhishthira, and with great intelligence, and well acquainted with what should be done in view of dangers and calamities, summoned all his brothers and the eternal Vasudeva, and that foremost of his speakers, then said in a mild voice, make your rounds among the soldiers and remain careful, casting yourselves in mail. Our first encounter will be with our grandsire. Look ye for leaders for the 7 Akishauhinis of my troops. Krishna said, those words of grave import, which it behoveth thee to utter on an occasion like this, have been uttered by thee. Even this is what I also like. Let, therefore, that be done which should be done next. Let 7 leaders be selected for thy arm. Vaisampayana said, summoning then those warriors eager for battle, Drupada and Virata, and that bull of Sinhas, and Diristariumna, the prince of Panchala, and King Diristaketu, and Prince Sihikihandi of Panchala, and Sahadeva, the ruler of the Magadhas. Yudhishthira duly appointed them in the command of his 7 divisions, and above them all was placed in command of all the troops that Diristariumna, who had sprung from the blazing fire for the destruction of Drona, and the Dhananjaya of curly hair was made the leader of all those high-souled leaders, and handsome Janardana, and with great intelligence, he who was the younger brother of Sankarsihana, was chosen as the guide of Arjuna and the driver of his steeds. And beholding that a very destructive battle was about to take place, there came into the Pandava encampment Halayudhiha, accompanied by Akrura, and Gada, and Samba, and Udihava, and Hokimini son, and Ahuka sons, and Kahudesna, and others, and surrounded and guarded by those foremost warriors of the Vishnhas, assembling a herd of mighty tigers, like Vasava, in the midst of the Maruts, the might armed and handsome Hama, attired in garments of blue silk, and resembling the peak of the Kailasa mountain, and endowed with the sportive gait of the lion, and possessed of eyes having their ends hardened with drink, came there. And beholding him, King Yudhishthira, the just, and Kesava of great effulgence, and Prithasson, Vrikodara of terrible deeds, and the elder of Gandiva, and all the other kings that were, rose from their seats, and they are offered worship unto Halayudhiha, as he came to that place. And the Pandava king touched Hama's hands with his own, and that chastiser of foes, Halayudhiha, in return, accosting them all with Vasudeva at their head, and saluting both Virata and Drupada, who were senior in years, sat down on the same seat with Yudhishthira. And after all the kings had taken their seats, Hohin son, casting his eyes on Vasudeva, began to speak. And he said, "This fierce and terrible slaughter is inevitable. It is, without doubt, a decree of fate, and I think that it cannot be averted. Let me hope, however, to behold all of you, with your friends, come safely out of this strife, with sound bodies and perfectly whole. Without doubt, all the Kshatriyas of the world that are assembled together have their hour come. A fierce melee, covering with a meal of flesh and blood, is sure to take place. I say it unto Vasudeva repeatedly in private. Unto those that bear equal relationship to us, observe thou an equal behavior, as are the Pandavas to us, even so is King Duryodhana. Therefore, give him the same aid. He repeatedly soliciteth it for thy sake. However, the slayer of Madhu regarded not my words. Looking at the Dhananjaya, he hath with his whole heart been devoted to your cause. Even this is what I certainly think, that the victory of the Pandavas is sure, for Vasudeva wish is even so. As regards myself, I dare not cast my eyes on the world without Krishna. It is for this that I follow whatever Krishna seeketh to achieve. Both of these heroes, well skilled in encounter with the mace, are my disciples, my affection, and therefore, for Bhishma is equal to that for King Duryodhana. For these reasons, I shall now repair to the Tirtha of the Sarasvati for ablutions, for I shall not be able to behold with indifference the destruction of the Kauravas." Having said this, the might-armed Hama, obtaining the leave of the Pandavas and making the slayer of Madhu desist, set out on his journey for the sacred waters. About this time there came into the Pandava camp Bhihismaka son, foremost among all persons of truthful resolution, and known widely by the name of Hokimi. The high-souled Bhihismaka, who was otherwise called King Hiranyahoman, was the friend of Indra, and he was most illustrious among the descendants of Bihosha, and was the ruler of the whole southern country. And Hokimi was a disciple of that lion among the Kimpurusas, who was known by the name of Drona, having his abode on the mountains of Gandhihamadana, and he had learned from his preceptor the whole science of weapons with its 4 divisions. And that might-armed warrior had obtained the bow named Vijaya of celestial workmanship, belonging to the great Indra, and which was equal to Gandiva in energy, and to Sarniga. There were 3 celestial bows owned by the denizens of heaven. Gandiva, owned by Varuna, the bow called Vijaya, owned by Indra, and that other celestial bow of great energy said to have been owned by Vishnu. This last, capable of striking fear into the hearts of hostile warriors, was held by Krishna. The bow called Gandiva was obtained by Indra's son from Agni on the occasion of the burning of Kihandava, while the bow called Vijaya was obtained from Drona by Hokimi of great energy, baffling the noses of Mura and slaying by his might Datasura and vanquishing Naraka, the son of the earth, his Hikesa, while recovering the begemmed earrings with 16,000 girls and various kinds of jewels and gems, obtained that excellent bow called Sarniga, and Hokimi, having obtained the bow called Vijaya, whose tongue assembled the horror of the clowns, came to the Pandavas, as if inspiring the whole universe with dread. Formerly proud of the might of his own arms, the heroic Hokimi could not tolerate the ravishment of his sister, Hokimini, by wise Vasudeva. He had set out in pursuit, having sworn that he would not return without having slain Janardana, and accompanied by a large army consisting of 4 kinds of horses that occupied a very large portion of the earth, coated in handsome coats of mail, and armed with diverse weapons, and resembling the swollen current of the Ganga, that foremost of all elders of weapons set out in pursuit of Vasudeva of Vrishni race, and having come up to him of Vrishni race, who was lord and master of everything obtainable by ascetic austerities, Hokimi was vanquished and covered with shame, and for this he returned not to Kundina, and on the spot where that slayer of hostile heroes was vanquished by Krishna, he built an excellent seat named Bihojakata, and that seat filled with large horses and teeming with elephants, steeds, is widely known on the earth by that name. And with great energy that hero, cased in mail and armed with bows, fences, swords, and quivers, quickly entered the Pandava camp, surrounded by an Akishahini of troops, and Hokimi entered that vast arm under a standard effulgent as the sun, and made himself known to the Pandavas from desire of doing what was agreeably to Vasudeva. King Yudhishthira, advancing a few steps, offered him worship, and duly worshipped and eulogized by the Pandavas. Hokimi saluted them in return, and hasted for a while with his troops, and addressing the Dhananjaya, the son of Kunti, in the midst of the heroes there assembled, he said, "If thou art afraid, I am here to render thee assistance in the battle. The assistance I will give thee will be unbearably by thy foes. There is no man in this world who is equal to me in prowess. I will slay those foes of thine whom thou wilt assign to me. I will slay on of those heroes, Drona and Kripa and Bhishma and Karna, or let all these kings of the earth stand aside. Slaying in battle thy foes myself, I will give thee earth." And he said this in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the just, and of Kesava, and in the hearing of the monarchs and all others. Then casting his eyes on Vasudeva and Pandu's son, King Yudhishthira, the just, the Dhananjaya, the intelligent son of Kunti, smiling but in a friendly voice, said these words: "Born in the race of Kuru, being special the son of Pandu, naming Drona as my preceptor, having Vasudeva for my ally, and bearing besides the bow called Gandiva, how can I say that I am afraid, when on the occasion of the tale of Ketli, affogged with the might Gandharvas, who was there to assist me in that terrific encounter with the gods and Danavas, banded together in great numbers at Kihandava, who was my ally, when affogged with the Nivatakavakhas, and with those other Danavas called Kalakeyas, who was my ally. When again at Virata city, affogged with the numberless Kurus, who was my ally in that battle, having paid my respects for battle's sake to Hudra, Sakra, Vaishavana, Yama, Varuna, Pavaka, Kripa, Drona, and Madhava, and yielding that tog celestial bow of great energy, called Gandiva, and accoutred with inexhaustibly arrows, and armed with celestial weapons. How can a person like me say, even unto Indra armed with the thunderbolt, such words as I am afraid, words that rob on of all his fame? Thou of my arms, I am not afraid, nor have I any need of thy assistance. Go, therefore, or stay, as it pleaseth or suiteth thee. Hearing these words of Arjuna, Hokimi, taking away with him his arm, vast as the sea, repaired then to Duryodhana, and King Hokimi, repairing thither, said the same words unto Duryodhana, but that king, proud of his bravery, rejected him in the same way. Thus 2 persons withdrew from the battle, Hohini, son of Vrishnihace, and King Hokimi, and after Hama had set out on his pilgrimage to the Tirthas, and Vismaka, son Hokimi, had departed thus, the sons of Pandu once more sat down for consulting with one another, and that conclave, presided over by King Yudhishthira the Just, abounding with numerous monarchs, blazed forth like the firmament, bespangled with lesser luminaries, with the moon in their midst,